Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. Today's webinar is all about advising and supporting students as they choose the right early post-secondary opportunity. Now in Kentucky, the most common and widely accessible early post-secondary opportunities are dual credit and advanced placement courses. And our state provides a lot of support for these programs. I want to gratefully acknowledge the financial support of the Kentucky legislature, where they've allocated funds for dual credit and work-ready dual credit scholarships, as well as exam fees for advanced placement. This financial support has made college and high school programs, which have many benefits for post-secondary enrollment and persistence and success, more and more accessible to Kentucky students. So we're really grateful for that support. You all know that early post-secondary opportunities can provide many benefits. They provide cost savings, transition support for students, especially those who are first-generation college goers. They provide shortened time to completion, preparation for the rigor of college coursework. Not to oversimplify a really complex system, but we know that different stakeholders like students and parents, high schools and institutions of higher education can be more or less interested in these different benefits. So as you might imagine, parents are really interested in saving money, as much of it as possible, that they're going to invest in their child's college education. High schools are super proud of the accomplishments of their students in completing early post-secondary coursework, including associate's degrees in some cases. And students are really invested in developing more confidence for that transition to college, and also in completing their degrees and credentials early or even on time. And our institutions of higher education really tend to like early post-secondary opportunities because they prepare students well for the college experience. So all of these are worthy and understandable goals, but today's session is really designed to hone in on the student experience and the student outcomes. The big question is, how do we help more of Kentucky students get from where they are to where they want to be, to a prosperous and fulfilling career in life by careful selection of college and high school coursework? I am so pleased to have our panel of experts with us today to break down some of the specifics of dual credit and advanced placement and to share some of their best strategies for supporting students through these decisions and transitions. So I'd like to take this second to welcome Jenny Sawyer, who's the Associate Provost and Executive Director of Admissions at the University of Louisville. We also welcome Matthew Ruark, who is the Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management at Kentucky Wesleyan College. Chris Reeves, who's a college counselor at the Craft Academy at Morehead State University. Joel Ford, who's a school counselor at Conner High School, and Allie Kearns, who is a college counselor at Trinity High School. Now, I'm just going to let you know that Allie is having a few technical difficulties this morning, so she's going to join us if possible, and if not, the rest of our panelists will be able to address some of the questions that we had for her. So welcome to our panelists. And I'd like to start our conversation with our high school representatives, and then we'll move on to some questions for our post-secondary partners. So Chris, I'd like to start out with you, and I'd like for you to provide our listeners with just kind of a layman's definition or the differences between advanced placement and dual credit. How are they different, and what's that student experience?
Thanks, Robin. I knew you were going to start with me. I could just feel that. I could just feel that coming. So welcome everyone. Advanced placement has been around for a really long time. It's a curriculum run by the College Board, and it's internationally recognized. In simple terms, you take an advanced placement college level class during high school, and at the end of that class, you take the advanced placement exam, and you get a score from 1 to 5, and many of you probably already know this in the audience, but generally a 3 is a passing score. At the same time, colleges across the world will give potential credit for passing scores, but each college determines what counts and for what it counts and how that transfers and how you are awarded college credit before you enroll in college. Dual credit is I tend to feel like dual credit in some ways for people is this really like practical level choice where you take the class, you get the credit. There's not an exam at the end of it to determine if you get the credit. So you take the class, you pass the class, you get the credit. So obviously you get the credit at the institution where you're taking the class, but oftentimes in many cases, depending on the course, it will transfer all over the place. Public schools, even private schools. I don't think there's a simple rule that would say a dual credit class wouldn't transfer out of state, but that's what we're here to talk about and how things operate. So I hope that answers your question, Robin.
Yeah, very much so. I was hoping you'd say there is a simple rule and there's an easy way to figure this out, but that you are right. That is why we're here today. So, Chris, there is a whole lot of discussion about how much is the right amount of college and high school. And I know you have some feelings about this. So how do you advise students to make the most beneficial choices?
I feel like I just don't feel like dual credit classes, even AP, is necessarily only for the purpose of gaining credit. I feel like a college class, whether it's an AP college level class or a college class in high school, is about the rigor and about being prepared. So I think it always goes down to each individual student. I've had students before who've taken 6 AP classes with 6 periods. That is not what I would advise 99.9% of students. Would not. In fact, that kid, I made his parent come in and we sat down and we talked about it before that schedule happened. So, AP research, for example, will show that after 4 or 5 AP classes throughout high school, the preparedness of the research in simple terms is students graduate college at a higher rate if they've taken AP. And that rate doesn't change once you get 4 or 5 APs. So if I'm advising a family, I'm going to bring up that information, that data, and say, hey, you don't need 4 AP classes per year to have a strong curriculum. You don't need necessarily to get all of those credits. So it's an individual advising, but I work at a dual credit high school. And our students leave with 60 hours of credits generally. So each person has to be advised individually. But I don't think I'll answer all the questions right now. We'll probably get into it with Joel, that sort of thing. But it is individual. I think that's the first thing people probably need to know as you're advising students. There probably is a time when it's too much, and there probably is a time to say, hey, let's go ahead and take one of these. Come on, let's try this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that emphasis that you're placing on the individual student and really knowing them well and knowing what their plans are and kind of what their readiness is for this college coursework. Allie, I'm so glad that you made it back with us. I can see you there on the screen, so I'm glad you're here. I have a couple of questions for you. I know that much of your work is directly with students about their college plans. So I was on a really practical level, just wondering, what questions do you start with to help get students on the right track with their college and high school?
Sure. We talk with them about what their interests are in terms of personal interests, but also academic interests. What classes do they like? Where do they feel like they thrive the most? But the biggest thing that I think can be helpful for students, especially those who are uncertain if a specific path is the right path for them, is we spend quite a bit of time individually with students working on going through like the U of L flight plan, for example, which talks about which exact classes you need to take for a specific degree path to graduate in 4 years. So we spend time looking at that and making sure the classes that are required align with their interests so that they can ensure that they're pursuing something that they're going to be passionate about and want to be a part of for their working life. So that's how we start with that process. We do have some assessments that we do for career assessment to see maybe what would be a good fit for them and what might not be a good fit for them, but most of it is communication based with the individual student.
Yeah. Allie, we've talked a lot about partnerships between high schools and institutions of higher education and how those really benefit students. You've given a great example with the Cardinal flight plan. If you could give some advice to institutions of higher education about how they might make this process easier for school counselors, and to help it make sense to students? What kinds of things would you be looking for?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? Our IT department was giving me some information about my computer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was talking about how this partnership between the high school and the institutions of higher ed, you gave the example of the Cardinal Flight Plan, but I was wondering if you could give advice to institutions of higher education about how it could become easier for school counselors to help students and support them. What kinds of other resources would help make that process easier for students?
Absolutely. I think, well, number one, having those plans readily available on the website is the biggest thing, but also being clear with general education requirements. That's a huge deal. But I could see a benefit from a career services office at an institution coming in to talk to students about, all right, let's think about how you develop your own personal interests and how do you determine where you fit, and does that where you fit change over the course of your life as you mature and change your interests. But having a partnership with the admissions office, but also with career services to open up opportunities for students at the high school level could be helpful. I know when I was in high school, the degree that I ended up with in college, I had no idea that even existed because we didn't have anybody to help tell us, hey, these are the things that you're good at. Let's also think about how you can do that at the college level and persist through for your professional life.
Yeah. Thank you, Allie. I love this idea of really focusing in on what students are good at and what they enjoy. And this notion of sometimes they don't even know what's out there. I've heard a lot of people say that taking these college and high school courses can help you not only figure out what you want to do, but also what you don't want to do. And so looking at that course list, on the flight plan or other lists like that, I know could be really helpful to students. All right, thanks, Allie. Joel, I'm going to turn to you now and ask a couple of questions. In comparing dual credit and advanced placement, I've heard you mention that balance is a key for student success. So what do you mean by balance?
Well, I think part of it goes back to what Chris was saying about, what the individual needs of each student. But, one thing I hear a lot is dual credit and AP treated as an either or proposition. I don't know that it has to be that way. I know in the case of one of my own children, she was able to take both. She preferred one, but needed the other to help fill some requirements. And so for her, she ended up with both as part of her high school experience. But really just thinking like, do you really need an associate's degree? What's the drive for a student to do that? Or is it more, do I need to take a few classes? Remember that I'm still a high school student with high school experiences. If I take all of these college courses, what's the price I'm going to pay as far as maybe some electives and things in the high school that I could take? And so, really stressing to kids what the options are, but really getting them to think again, what am I doing this for? What do I want to get out of this experience? And just making sure that it's a balanced approach.
Yeah, so just looking at the whole person.
Right.
We have talked a lot about early post-secondary opportunities and how they're relatively accessible for students who are at the top of their class, or for students whose parents or people in their homes have post-secondary degrees. They sort of know how to get there, from where they are. But there are lots of students in Kentucky who don't have perfect GPAs, or who might be first generation college going, maybe don't really thrive in a traditional classroom setting, or maybe haven't even thought about going to college, don't even consider themselves college material. Joel, I know you work with a lot of these students. So how do you help them get on track for a post-secondary track toward a rewarding and prosperous career?
So I think the first thing is for the school to make sure that they advertise all types of opportunities. So yes, there are dual credit options and AP options for a 4-year college track. But there are plenty of students who may be looking at a 2-year college, or maybe looking at some sort of certification program, and helping them realize that there are early post-secondary options available for them. We have students I know at our local area technology center. They're taking classes over there, but they're also, in our case, tied with Gateway, starting to take some college coursework, or just students in general that maybe traditional high school is not being the best fit, but there may be an option for a technical program that fits their personality, fits their learning style, that sort of thing. And not forgetting that those options exist, and being able to advertise those to students just as much as we do the more traditional academic routes.
Yeah. I see Chris has got his hand up, so let's go to Chris for a second.
So Joel, I had a student at St. Henry. I was part-time, for the audience, part-time at St. Henry, just helping out for a couple years as they needed something. And they didn't really have a relationship with any of the 2-year schools, but I had this kid not doing so well in some of his classes, and he took electricity, took circuits one semester, took circuits 2 another semester. And it was so cool to see him come in and say, I really like my electricity class. I really like that. And he did evenings. He took, schools, that people don't know, schools can alter their schedules. We let him go home after 6th period. That was his dual credit period. And then on Monday nights, he went with all the other kids. Well, they aren't kids, all the other people taking those classes at Gateway Technical Community College. And he was taking electricity at Gateway and absolutely loved it. So it was cool to see him thrive that way.
And really all it takes is thinking a little bit outside of the box as far as maybe scheduling or things like that. But as long as you have that flexibility, it certainly can benefit the student.
Yeah. I can see on the screen your faces. All of us on the screen are educators, and when you hear a story like what Chris told, that's what we thrive on, is seeing those students find that sweet spot that is going to be a good fit for them for their entire career. So thank you for that story. All right, so thank you, Joel. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit now and go to post-secondary. And I'm going to start with Matt from Kentucky Wesleyan. And Matt, we've heard so much about helping students get where they want to go from the high school perspective. I heard you say one of my favorite phrases, which is begin with the end in mind. So can you expound on this idea a little bit and talk about what does that look like in the post-secondary world?
For sure. Yeah. One of the things that we work for when we're working with the high school students, as they're coming in and they say, I've taken 12 hours, I've taken, 24 hours, I've taken 30 hours, is really talking to that student, what is that? What is the ultimate goal? Are you aiming for a medical degree? Are you aiming to just get that 4-year degree and go into a career? So similar to what, I know Allie mentioned the flight plan at U of L. Having those plans on the website is one thing that most colleges do. We do that here at Kentucky Wesleyan. But knowing if your student is aiming for if they're aiming for a 2-year degree, then depending what their path is, that advising is different. If they're aiming for a 4-year degree in career, that's different. If they're aiming to go to a Kentucky college versus a really rejective college, to steal a term, in the Northeast, perhaps, that advising is all different along those ways. So if you know where the end is, then it helps make the path to that easier. If we know a class is going to transfer to a Kentucky institution, or maybe there's a question about whether that class would transfer to an out-of-state knowing that information, oftentimes those students who are looking to go out of state are maybe a little more motivated and can do the research themselves and say, hey, this is what I found. But really bringing them in, having that conversation, and then looking at their where they intend to go is the best thing in our opinion.
Yeah. I hear you saying again that this idea, we talked about the very beginning of our conversation today, that it's a complex system. And so whether it's dual credit or advanced placement, you still have to find out with the institution how that credit will transfer, or if it will transfer, and how it can be applied to the path that they're on. Matt, I want to ask a follow-up question that we really hadn't talked about before, but you mentioned helping students kind of know where they want to go. And do you, when students are in high school, it's hard when you're 15 or 16 to know, kind of what your whole life is going to be about. But do you find that students who have taken advanced placement and dual credit courses, that they have a better sense of what they want to do when they get to you? Does it matter?
Yeah, I think they're like all things. I think there's two sides to the coin. I think that certainly depending on what their experience is with AP or maybe dual credit in the school, they may have one idea of what that might look like. Sometimes, in our case, we have a lot of students who take dual credit on our campus, so their experience is a little bit different than the dual credit in the high school. But working through that, working with the student to figure out what that is, and and advising them, sometimes that if they take that AP course in high school and they do really well on the exam, they can get 6 hours of credit. Whereas if they take that dual credit course, they're only getting those 3 hours of credit for college algebra, for example. So being able to come alongside and know what that end result looks like, and helping the student understand that, if you may have completed an associate's degree here or at another institution, and you may have been on site, or that may have been mostly in your high school, but still there's still a step up once you get on campus, and expectations in the amount of freedom. We find that students who complete an associate's degree oftentimes do have a little bit of adjustment when they come to campus, and they have all that free time. Whereas maybe in high school, they were kind of in that structured class, and then they were done. Then they come to college and they have an 8 a.m., then they have an 11 a.m., and they have a 2:25, and they go, what do I do with all my free time? And of course, we say, go to the library. But obviously,
Good advice.
they end up going to a coffee shop. But
All right. So I want to move now to Jenny to wind down our conversation. Jenny, I want to quote one of your comments from our previous conversation about all this. You said, making the choice, and I'm going to say in quotation marks, for early post-secondary opportunities. You didn't say that part, but making this choice is smart. What did you mean?
So what I meant is, don't get intimidated by all the complexities, what is out there, how's it going to transfer, where am I thinking I'm going? There are so many what ifs when a student is making these decisions. Don't get intimidated by that. And if you're up for the challenge, whether or not that be an AP or dual credit, and you're looking for something that can push you, okay, take an AP or a dual credit, or whatever the early post-secondary opportunities are that your high school offers. Make sure as parents that you're asking about what those, and going back to what Chris said about the young man that took the electricity course, make sure you push and challenge your school for what is their flexibility. We had two young men who immigrated from Cuba, and they realized that if they knew they wanted to be engineers, right? One's working at Google now, one's working at Amazon. And they knew they wanted to be engineers, and all they knew was that in order to be successful as an engineer, their math had to be high. And they saw where their high school didn't really offer, just because of where they lived and what the other students around them were ready in mathematics. And so they pushed their high school, and their high school allowed them to leave early and come to our campus to take those math courses that got them ready to be successful in college level calculus. So going back to what Chris started with, is that individual, right? think about yourself, think about what you want for yourself. And it doesn't have to be a major career, but what type of path do you want to be on as far as your lifestyle and what you want to be able to provide for your family? And then make those choices, push yourself and do an early post-secondary education opportunity. Check it out and see if that doesn't add to the quality of your high school education. I'm sure it's going to.
Yeah. Okay, Jenny, as executive director of admissions, I'm curious what advice would you give? I know you're talking already about thinking about where you want to go, but when you're looking at applications, what makes an application stand out for others in a positive way? When you're thinking about those early post-secondary opportunities, what are you looking for?
Well, we work hard to look at applications in the context of the school that the student is coming from. And so I think you also want to look at where you are and what can you do to make the most of your 4 years of high school, and what are the opportunities. And so what we want to see is that a student has pushed themselves, has challenged themselves. So that can be different from each student and each applicant. But we want to see that people have been working actively, particularly in their senior year, to put themselves in a position to be ready for the rigors of college and be ready for that independence. So if you do have an opportunity, if you're in a situation where you do have an opportunity to actually go on a college and take a course, actually take that dual credit course on the college campus, by all means do that. Just having that exposure to navigating your time and being in a classroom, maybe with students who are full-time college students while you're still in high school, and seeing how that works and seeing how college professors may be different. I would strongly encourage that if your high school offers that opportunity. But we want to see where students have made those difficult choices. The worst thing I hate to hear students say is when I ask about why they didn't take a certain class, they were like, well, that was beyond the minimum requirements. You don't ever want to be about the minimum. You want to be about the maximum.
Okay. Thanks, Jenny. One last question for you. Do I? I'm sorry.
Keeping Joel's balance in mind a little bit. Yeah,
yeah, right. Joel's like, wait, balance. Last question for you, Jenny, and then as soon as Jenny wraps up, I'd like to just invite all of you to come back with final words, and Joel, we'll start with you on that. So we'll just wrap up our conversation. So I'll give you all a heads up that I'm going to ask you for final words that you'd like to share. But Jenny, last question for you. You have said that the benefits of early post-secondary opportunities go well beyond saving money and saving time. We know that parents are really about saving money, students are really about saving time, but you say the benefits go beyond that. And sometimes it's, when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see those. So in your experience, how have students benefited from these college and high school experiences, your students at U of L? What other benefits have you seen?
So first and foremost is preparation. The more you're prepared when you get to college, particularly because so many students really haven't made up their mind exactly what they want to do. If you're prepared, you're going to have more doors open to you. And so if you all of a sudden hear about a certain program or opportunity, you're more likely going to be able to be selected or be able to walk into that opportunity if you're better prepared. So preparedness is goal one. If you can check a box, which is the term I use with students all the time, and it meets a degree requirement, that is also going to open up doors for you to be able to maybe earn a second degree, get a minor, explore, get a certificate. Institutions are really growing their certificate programs right now. So for instance, we have a new certificate in real estate. So maybe you're doing a marketing or a management type of degree, but if you can graduate with a certificate in real estate and be able to walk out the door and be a licensed real estate agent, that is a wonderful way in which to take advantage of maybe the head start you got by taking AP and dual credit. So there are just so many opportunities on college campuses. It might be the thing that allows you to study abroad a semester and not have to worry about the progress toward your degree because you're already a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
So there's just countless ways in which it just adds to your flexibility. And again, I just go back to that phrase about just having more doors open to you.
Thanks, Jenny. I think sometimes when students are in high school and on that side of their college experiences, they don't see all of that, and maybe even their families don't. Especially the first generation college goers do not see that. So thank you for sharing all that. Okay, so final words. We're bumping up on our time here. So Joel, I'm going to start with you, and then I'll just kind of go around my screen. So it'll be Joel, Chris, Matt, Allie, and Jenny. You can take us home.
Yeah, I appreciate the discussion today. I just would encourage students and those helping students, take advantage of the opportunity. Remember that it's about the rigor and preparation for life beyond high school. Take advantage of the opportunities that you have available to you. And, from there, the sky's the limit.
Thanks, Joel.
Joel recognized this format. So if you're a student, try something, gain confidence. If you're a parent, just don't expect everything counts exactly how you want it to. That's not about that. It's great if it happens, not about that. If you're a counselor at a school, push your school for access and opportunity for students. And if you're a college, be clear about how and what transfers.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, Matt.
Yeah, I think work to build those relationships and use your network with your peer. If you're on the high school side, with your peers at the college level, and obviously for those of us at the college level, to connect with those who are working in the high schools, so that we're not assuming one way or the other, because making those connections and have those conversations are what helps students make that connection from high school into those early post-secondary opportunities, into college or certificate or wherever that looks like. Having those relationships is important. And if you don't have that relationship with a local institution, there are people all across the state and through certain professional organizations like Kentucky ACAC, where you can make those connections and be helpful.
All right, partnerships. Thanks, Matt. Allie.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Matt. I was going to say your resources. So we've got a really, really great network here in the state of Kentucky to help advocate for our students and help to teach the folks at the high school and college level how to help the students. So use your network, use your resources. That's a really important thing to me. I would also say find a way to help students advocate for themselves with what they want for their future. So try not to let someone tell them what they can and can't do, rather teach them how to be self-advocates and to support them through this process so that they get to where they want to go and where they need to be.
Wow, thanks, Allie. Great life skill. It's going to serve them well, not just in this experience. Thank you. And Jenny.
So just to keep in mind, I know that there's so much talk about the complexity and what transfers, but the state of Kentucky requires every university, every public university to have a product called the Transfer Evaluation System. And you can find it on almost all websites, or you can go directly to College Source, which is the name of the company. But there are easy ways for a student to look at, or for a parent, or for a high school counselor, if they're talking about what courses to offer. There are easy ways for you to do research online 24/7 about what transfers to the institutions. But I just want to go back to what Chris said. He summed it up great. I think for each population, the things they need to, but to think about doing, and that is, fight for access, fight for more resources, take advantage of that, and again, remember that at the core, it's about preparedness.
All right. Well, final thank you to all our panelists today. I know we could keep talking for a couple of hours about these topics and never exhaust your expertise and all your experiences in this area. But I do want to just summarize by saying, today our topic was really about AP and dual credit and kind of choosing. And I think you all have said loud and clear, it's not an either or, it's an and it's always keeping the student and their plans for the future at the center of advising and supports that you provide. So thank you again to our panelists. I'm going to turn things over now to Trinity Walsh, who is going to share a data moment with us related to our conversation today. And again, Happy New Year to everyone.
Thanks, Robin. I really appreciate it. Welcome to 2024. Recently, the National Student Clearinghouse just released this data showing that Kentucky had the highest fall-to-fall total college enrollment gains in the nation this past year. And while at CPE, we continue to study how we have been so successful in doing this. I hypothesize that some of this has to do with our state's dedication to recognizing the value of early post-secondary opportunities for our high school students, which is leading to confidence and success in these post-secondary courses. As we've heard from our guests, choosing the right EPSO can be difficult sometimes, and it doesn't have to be a showdown. But at the end of the day, it has to be what is right for the students. In making personalized choices, we're not only doing what's right for each student in our state, region, and school, but we have the opportunity to positively impact our own region and possibly have a positive economic impact as well. The College Board gives this advice when choosing an AP course, but I think this is applicable to all types of early post-secondary opportunities, which is you should choose a course based on the subject you're passionate about and what classes you will do well in. This is such great advice, and all of our panelists today have repeatedly said this over and over again. In the last few years, we've seen growth in these programs as school districts look for ways to expand opportunities for students that will increase rigor, expand access, and growth for our students and their region. We need to consider, just like Chris said, how are we able to be creative about what we're offering for our students so that they are having the best opportunities possible. And as we help students navigate this tricky topic, it's really not a question of this or that. It's really the or the and, or the and, not the or. And while this should be a conversation of balance and individualization, goodness gracious, College Board offers a variety of AP courses. And as we think about those types of things, and we're trying to figure out how to balance that with dual credit, consider what your school district can be doing to provide these higher level courses in areas where college level isn't currently being offered through AP courses or any other higher level programs. Oftentimes, this might be a CTE course, such as health science courses, business courses, family and consumer science courses, engineering, electricity, like Chris mentioned, or my personal favorite, education courses. As we look to strengthen our workforce pipeline in these areas, we have the opportunity through dual credit to give students experience and confidence in these fields, including students whom we might not always consider for advanced coursework. But these opportunities are opportunities for students to thrive and do well given the challenge. So take some time to look where these opportunities might lie with your course offerings in partnership with your colleges and universities. And before we leave today, I want to remind you of our early post-secondary opportunities toolkit. There's a lot of information within this toolkit to help you guide your work, and we're working to consistently evolve and grow the toolkit to be helpful for you. So if there's something that you think is missing or something you think needs to be added, please let us know. I also want to give a quick plug to two of our panelists, Chris Reeves and Joel Ford, who host a podcast billed as a college admission podcast for all, which I believe it truly is. And you can find this amazing podcast on a variety of platforms. Join us next month on February 9th for our next webinar. Please tell your friends, neighbors, or anyone who is interested in advising students on early post-secondary opportunities that this is the place for them. And we are looking forward to expanding our opportunities and our options when we look for these types of programs. And finally, don't forget to follow up and follow us on social media for the most updated information that CPE offers regarding these webinars, policy updates, and great things that are happening around the state. I hope your 2024 is off to a great start, and we'll see you next month.